Well, this week we have a matchup that is unlike any other. A matchup between a 1-2 team and a 3-0 team. But that's not necessarily the matchup that I'm referring to. I'm referring to a Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier level fight. And that is we talked last week about a stoppable force meeting a movable object. Well, this week we have an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. And that is a pair of number one rankings in each of these position groups. We'll get into it all in this video as we look ahead to week 3 of the NFL season, or week 4, excuse me, of the NFL season between the Colts and the Steelers. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And we are looking ahead to the matchup of the century. Again, this is a Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier level matchup, and that is between the number 1 overall rated defensive line going up against the number 1 overall rated offensive line. And these two teams, we'll pull this up here. These two teams, we'll pull up the Steelers first, right? This is the Steelers ranked according to PFF. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the top 5 or are number 1 overall. And you look here, their edge rushers, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and Keanu Benton. The Steelers' front seven was somewhat contained by the Broncos, but their 83.0 pass rush grade of 44.2 pressure both rank second in the NFL. Pittsburgh defensive line has also earned the highest run defense grade among units. They have combined to just miss 1 tackle and have recorded the 7th most run stops. And obviously, no surprise here, the top player on that team is TJ Watt. Watt's 91.6 pass rush ranks 3rd among edge rushers. His official stat line suffers from 2 sacks that were negated by penalties. And this is obviously from last weekend. It only got better after this weekend for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who moved to 3-0. Who have so far only allowed an average points per game of 8.6. So this is going to be you look at that number and you think the Colts have no shot, right? This is an unbelievable defensive line. But then you move ahead to the Colts offensive line. And this is what we're looking at here. Number 1 rated offensive line in football. And this isn't just PFF. This is an amazing amount of analysts and sports media have ranked the Colts offensive line being number 1 overall, and we saw it last week against the Bears. The Bears have no shortage of good players on their defensive line. They have Montez Sweat and plenty of others, but you look here at the Colts offensive line, and this is where I want to draw attention right here. This sentence right here. Left tackle Bernard Raymond surrendered 1 quarterback hurry in week 3, and his 83.4 PFF pass blocking grade ranks 6th among left tackles. The third-year player is allowing pressures on only 5.8% of dropbacks this season, which is tied for his best rate in his career. These two guys right here, Bernard Raymond and Braden Smith, are among the best dynamic duo in football. And I know the offensive line doesn't get the same amount of attention that a lot of other players get, but we're seeing what happens when you don't have a good one. Just look at the situation between Washington and the situation between the Bears. If you looked at the beginning of the season, Jaden Daniels was not necessarily viewed as a better quarterback than Caleb Williams. And in fact, Caleb Williams has all of the people that you would want in a team as far as receivers go and tight end. They went out and got to DeAndre Swift. But you look at all that, but no offensive line, and he's the most pressured quarterback in football, and he's ranked among one of the worst right now, statistically speaking, in football. But then you look at Jaden Daniels, who has a good offensive line, and you look at this team, and you look at what Jaden Daniels has. He has Terry McLaurin. They lost Jahan Dotson to the Eagles. So you look at all of that, and yet, look at these two quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels has one of the highest passer ratings in the first 3 games of history. And so while we were comparing those two quarterbacks, the difference being the offensive line and coaching, obviously, but the offensive line being the key point here. The Indianapolis Colts have one of the best offensive lines. I would say these 5 guys, Will Fries being the only one that I'm not like. I like Will Fries, but I'm not completely sold on Will Fries being at right guard. But you look at Bernard Raymond, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith specifically, those guys, and just look at what they were able to do last week against the Bears. I mean, they made them look foolish as far as specifically run protection goes. So this is going to be a battle of the century in this regard, because it's going to be one that's going to be 2 heavyweight teams. You've got TJ Watt, who's going to be likely lined up either against Braden Smith or against Bernard Raymond, depending. More than likely Braden Smith, just because he typically plays on that right side. But you look at that, and it's going to be a tough matchup. And don't get me wrong, the Colts are going to need to spend extra attention on this defensive line, even more so. Expect to see more 2 tight end sets to hopefully be able to do a little bit more. Expect to see Trey Sermon out there on pass rushing just because he does better at pass blocking than Jonathan Taylor. But look for all of this, because this is going to be a game plan that both teams are going to have to game plan against. The Steelers are going to have to devote extra attention to the Colts offensive line, and the Colts are going to have to devote so much extra attention to the Steelers defensive line. And I am, to be honest, I am a little concerned with how Anthony Richardson's going to respond to likely more pressure and likely a better defense than he's typically seen. This is a Steelers team that's only allowing 10 points per game so far in this NFL season. While you combine that with the Colts only scoring, I believe the grand total, so they had 29 in the first, or 27 in the first game. They had only 10 in the second game, and then they had, so yeah, it's roughly like 15 points per game, 18 points probably per game between the two. So you combine those two, a low-scoring offense with a low-scoring per game defense, and it's going to be a big matchup. Now, don't get me wrong. I still think the Colts have a very real shot at having a win here. The Steelers have beat some good teams, but I do think that there's a possibility that the Colts walk out of here with a victory. If Anthony Richardson's able to nail his checkdowns, it's going to be a lot quicker. There's not going to be as many explosive plays, but I think that if the Colts are able to nickel and dime it down the field, they have a real shot here, especially with Jonathan Taylor coming off of a really, really good game against a really, really good defensive line. But it's all about letting your situations develop. And that's what's going to happen this weekend, because it's not going to be easy going against easily one of the greatest edge rushers of all time. But you also look at the Colts defensive line is not very far down on this list. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they're ranked either 6th or 7th on this list, given Leatu Latu. Now, that was with the addition of DeForest Buckner, so it is going to vary a little bit. But the Steelers' offensive line isn't unbeatable by any means. And so it's also a good matchup on the other side. You've got Justin Fields, who's just now kind of getting his legs under him, getting his footing, kind of getting, like, quite literally, not even to speak in allegory, but quite literally, Justin Fields is finally getting it settled down. Rooting for him on any other weekend besides this weekend. But this matchup is going to be talked about, I think, hopefully, all week long, of this offensive line being able to hold up against a really, really good defensive line. Because their best players, edge rusher TJ Watt and edge rusher Alex Highsmith, and then Cameron Hayward, a lot of those guys are going to be matched up directly with the best Colts players in Bernard Raymond, Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Braden Smith. And so anytime, I do believe that there is a fair shot, if Anthony Richardson is able to get rid of the ball quickly and accurately, which I think is a big thing that we've talked about over the past couple weeks, is accuracy. If Anthony Richardson is able to do that, there's a very real shot that it's not going to be as lethal as it will be against a team like the Bears or a team like the Jets, who have struggling offensive lines. That's what's going to be really, really big, and it's going to be a testament for how good this Colts team is going to be able to hold up against this very, very strong Bears defense. We will see what's going on. We'll cover the injury report tomorrow as we get further along in the week. I do believe so far coming out of camp, it's all pretty good news, but we will continue to update you as we get more information, and for now, we'll see you on the next one.